Arrow functions are one of the most essential things that you will use uh, in future works. If you are working with any other application like that, in future you may require it. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take one API today. I'll find that API way. Okay. So you can take any weather API, but this is a famous API which you can use. This is one of the famous APIs that are common and everybody uses it. So this basically makes an API. So basically, weather APIs are everywhere. You can try one of them. I wanted you guys to know how weather APIs work because the other ones you can create account with the other one with the GitHub one. You can try it on your own because GitHub's API is really easy to use. You don't have to log in and do stuff there. And in weather, it's little bit tough to do. That's why I've taken this because that might create an issue there. So that's why. Okay, so there are many weather APIs that you can get various for various locations, various areas. Uh, there are different APIs for them if you want to check out or if you want to specifically see for any location. This is one of the famous apps that you can use. Uh, this is actually recommended by UN because it's accepted there. Otherwise, you can take any random API from internet and you can try it out. I'll just connect for the Yeah, okay. So basically, if you have, you can follow along with me if you want, or you can try making your account too. So um, well, just give us a free API. I think. Okay, they have stopped. We can take another API. I already have enough. Okay, so you can take any of the APIs you want from here or any other websites if you want. Just don't copy my details. That's okay. So here's one of the key that I made, and there's nothing more than this. Only the details which are important is the key API key to access it, and I want if I want to access the documentation. Present scenario. Okay, so to work with this API, basically you can use this particular key and ID, and it shows various methods in which you can call it. So if you want it by city, by name, or by various parameters, you can just put up a city or something like that, and as soon as you click submit, and you can see that particular option there. So to access to particularly work with this key, we can take anything for now. As of now, we'll just copy this and we'll check it with our API if it's working properly or not. So wherever it's written API key, API ID, we'll replace the code present. And for the take for now. So see, it gives up all the details. What's the visibility, name, and different areas related to it. So it gives you all the details, coordinates, weather, base stations, and something like that. So this is one of the top and most used API. If you ever uh, start working with APIs, the first thing that people do is start with this API, and they build up a website or an app regarding this, and then display details of that particular app on device. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. So we'll also create one of the application using this particular thing, and we'll create a website with it. Okay, so do you guys want me to start with a fresh page, or should I take a template and start from there? Because the front end code you guys will be able to understand. So how to use Postman? Have covered? No, we haven't covered that. So these are bonus lectures. So once we complete this particular project, we can have that particular thing. Okay. Yeah. So any views on what should I do with the front end? Should I write it on my own, or should you guys just want me without a UI, something which is completely blank and plain, or you want something like this? I'll show you the UI also, what it looks like. So, so this is how it looks like. Doesn't have anything, just an option to change location if you want to, and these are just the four fields which are present. So I think you guys can make this fresh page. Okay, I'll take a fresh page then. Okay, so whenever you create an API like this, uh, just be sure that you should have only 4 to 5 fields that you have to keep in mind. You don't have to write the complete code, or you don't have to copy the complete code there. Okay, so primarily whenever we make any website or something like that, we just want 2 to 3 details that are more than important. So something like an heading, then 4 li fields or ul fields where we display the details. Okay, so whenever you open a weather API like this, here you can see, mm, there are many descriptions that we can give. So something like a description of how the sky is there. What's the ID for that? ID isn't that important. The temperature which is present there, and what does it feel like? What is the minimum temperature? What is the maximum temperature? And what's the pressure there? What's the humidity there? Okay, so as many as filters features you want to add, you can do that. For now, what we'll do is we'll just take one or two and we'll display that. So that sounds like other details you can just call it using the template. Okay, or you can just copy it from there. So I'll just take simple H1 field. whether, then I'll take a UL, and inside this UL will display different LIs. This one, then that one. Display at least three details we can display. Okay, and we name this something like collection. Then what we can display, first thing we can display is temperature. And then we can display uh, what we can display. We'll display the type of environment. So what's that variable present? Uh, description, and you can display humidity. So these are more than less. You can add more if you want. So as of now, we'll keep this, and we'll add a button also if you want, if we need it. Don't think we'll need it, but still, if we need it, we'll add that. Okay, and I'll just again open the live because it's opened on another link. So yeah, it looks like this. Nothing complex to look at it. Only three fields and just weather details present. Okay. So whenever you are working with APIs, basically here what we did was sorry, we just took some details from here from the documentation. This documentation you can see you have to query the city name, and then you have to query the API key. So API key will remain constant everywhere, and everywhere it's called. Okay. So if you see any link, anything like that, everywhere API key is called. So if you have something which is recurring, we what do we do if something is recurring and coming and again? So how do we call that particular thing in our project? If we have something which is reusable, how do we call that particular thing? What do we use for that? If you have something recurring like API keys or something like that. Anyone? If we have an API key, how do we use it? What do we do for recurring calls or something like that? No one? Yes. Okay, that's right. So that's correct. Whenever we have something which is recurring, we define a variable for that. So we can define var API key and something like that. But today I wanted to explain you some concept which is really important, which is classes in this classes present inside uh, JavaScript. Okay. So whenever you are working with classes or something like that, the advantage is there's something called as constructor. So has anyone heard about constructor? Anyone who knows constructor? No one? Yes, go on. Okay, what is it then? Yeah. Okay. So that's right. Whenever we create any class or anything like that, so it's used for initializing classes. Okay. So by default, whenever you call that class or function, if you call an object, by default some value is assigned to it. So that's done through a constructor. In whenever you're working with big projects in JS, the first thing is you should always try creating classes if you are reusing variables like this. Okay, so I'll just give an example. So normally if you have to use a constructor, just have to use the keyword constructor, and then if you have some parameters you can specify, and then curly braces. Okay, Similarly, it's almost similar to a function. Only difference is constructor acts similar to function. Only the thing is, whenever you call it by default, it should execute something. Okay. So by default, whenever you call a constructor, by default, whenever you call this particular library, it should display something. So we'll take values like city. I think only thing we require as of now is city. First, we'll do for a single variable, then we can move on to complex one. So there's city name. So we can take city or we can take state too. So we'll take city and state both. City, comma state. Okay. So uh, if you want to assign the current value which is given to a variable, how do we do that? If we have something like city is equals to something, if we modify city, so how do we get that particularly modified thing? First, what we'll do is we'll create an API key. So API key, and we'll assign that to whatever we have uh, got it. Okay. So this is the API key. So whenever you have something like that, you just specify this as an API key. I'll just put it up in quotes so that it doesn't get an issue. Okay. So this is an API key. Then other two components, how do we assign them? We have to get latest values. We have studied this. If you want to get latest values as soon as user updates them, so how do we update the constructor with it? I've written the answer too, but yeah, this starts with this dot. Right. Both of them right. Okay. So nice try, guys. Uh, this is how you do it. This currently assigns the latest values to the particular variable. So this dot city gets updated to whatever city value specify. So if you give Kerala here, it will take that city and display the latest one which is present there. Okay, so this is how you make a basic constructor when we're using an API. So it's always better to do something like this if the API is not open to everyone. If it's open to everyone, you can directly call using the functions which we had learned yesterday. Okay, but if you're using it for a production based application, it's always better to do it like this. Okay, so next what we can do is we can create a function named as get weather, and we get the weather there. And okay, so inside this we'll take response, and inside response we'll make await calls, await and fetch. Okay, anyone, what does fetch do? You guys might have known about it. Okay, if not fetch, then async await. Anyone, what does async await do? Async and await, both of them. Guys, try. No, it's okay if you make a wrong attempt. If you can try, just what should what. Okay, so that's right. Async functions are functions which waits for the response from the basically response from variables or response from any of the output. Okay, so they wait for wherever there's an await keyword present, it will wait there for the particular input to be assigned. Only then the particular function will give the output. Okay. So in case what happens is some sites you have seen you get an error like cannot get to these sites. In those cases, async await works the best. So in some case, what happens? This open weather API shuts down or it slows down a little bit because of the server space. Okay. So in those conditions, this async await will load the page until unless the API is not loaded. Okay. So you see some sites they just keep on loading and loading and loading whenever the API is down or whenever the site is down. So in those cases, this condition is occupied, and it's better to do something like that, because if some confidential information is present anywhere, it will be avoided with this condition, and there's no revealing of data. Okay, so that's how it works. And fetch is just a promise. Promise is basically a type of function which is used for getting details. Okay, so if you any link which you want to get, you just put it up in fetch and it will get that link. Okay, so we'll take this API key as of now and we'll paste it and we'll replace the variables which are present here. Okay, so app ID we know we can replace this. Okay. What we'll do is we'll put backtick quotes because we have to put variables here. So how do I replace this with the key? Anyone? Yes, right. Okay, so dollar bracket and API key, and it will work the same way. Then for state and city, same thing, dollar and bracket, first city, then there's a comma, and there's a state. Let me check the document. Okay, so you can see it's almost the same. Then we have state code. Okay, if you don't want, we'll remove this later, but as of now we need it, so that's why I'm taking it as of now. If we don't require it, we'll remove the state thing. Okay. Okay, we'll do it normally with city, then we'll add state. Okay, so then uh, then as soon as we get a response, what we can do is we can console log response. If it's working, first we'll see if that response is giving us an output. So log response. We'll call this function get weather, and let's see if this is working as of now. It should give some error because we haven't specified those values. Achha, we have to give values too. It will wait till we don't give values. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll write the complete function and then we'll execute it. We have to give the inputs also, like API key, city, state, and all the other things. So that we haven't given that, that's why it will not work now. So what we'll do is we'll write the complete code and then we'll check it. So once after getting the response, what we do is we convert that into a JSON format. Okay, so how do we do that? Anyone? We can do JSON.parse, or we can do await. We can do await. Any of that will work. That await response.json. Okay, so response.json or json.parse, all of that will work in this condition. You can do JSON parse, json.parse and put response in bracket, or you can do response.json. Any of that will work in this condition. Whenever you're working with API, this is the default format that you use, and then we can return response data. So whenever we return response data, we can check whatever value is present there, whatever issues, whatever value we give here should be displayed here. Okay, so response data is basically this. Whatever we get, this is in JSON format. So we have to get details for that. We can just put up the value from here and we'll check whatever value is present. So we'll get the complete JSON for the location, for whatever location we specify details like this. Okay, so what we can do is now we can make or we'll write a function here only to get weather. So I'll make a variable const weather just for checking. As of now we'll take new weather because we have to call the class and then from the class we'll access these functions. So we'll take Boston and let's check for Boston first, then we can take for India, or we can check for Boston. Okay, then we can do document dot add event listener, and as soon as what we can do, as soon as we click the button, or we can take an input and then click it on button. Okay, so we'll take the input value dash input id equal state city, If we need this in future, we'll do it. But as of now, what we can do is we can leave this, and by default, whenever we run this function, we'll execute it. We'll not call this specifically. Okay. Okay. We can also do something like uh, down content loaded. Okay, so what does this do? This is also one of the features which is present there. So whenever DOM, all of the components of DOM are loaded. So something like all the letters of weather, details, and all the UL, HL, all the classes which are present, all the text, all the UI, whenever it's loaded. As soon as that is loaded, we can call the specific function, and whenever it's complete, the complete site is loaded, we can console log, and that particular thing will be executed. So what we'll do is we create another function, uh, display 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 and display weather, or we can do something like that. Okay, and as soon as this is loaded, we can display it, or you can also integrate this on. You can also integrate this particular thing on a click of button, but I am doing it on uh, document content loader, because as of now, what we'll do is we'll just check if this particular function and particular thing is loading or not, or if it's working or not. So I'll console log I, and let us see if this is executing. So what we'll do is we'll take can add an event listener also. Can make, so we can call document dot get element by ID, and then we can add any submit. I think it's on submit. As soon as we click submit dot add event listener, and we copy, click off that button. Has this app.js connect? Okay, I think the previous one will also work. So that's one of the shortcut you can do is DOM content loaded. So yes, it works. DOM content loaded is one of the keywords that you can use as soon as a complete website is loaded. The DOM is completely document object model. So document object model is your document. As soon as this document is loaded, it will execute at that time. So it's one of the CVS that you can use. And so as soon as I'm loading it, I can see the details. So what we'll do is we'll console log response that we got from the details. So if we this is whatever we whenever we use async function, what happens, it creates a promise kind of thing. So can anyone explain what a promise is now? So you can see this is a promise. Okay, so what does promise do? Anyone? Yes, that's right. So like we have studied in classes functions, we have studied we can reuse the particular functions. So this is how one of the methods in which you can uh, reuse the function. And promise to also offer functions, also offer features which are beyond this. The try catch features also present there, so that's not present in many of the other functions. So that's one of the biggest advantage. And to basically use it, you just have to create a variable, just like you create an object here. So here you create an object weather for a class, and then you can access a function using async. Similar to a class and object function. The only difference is whenever you are doing object oriented programming, you copy paste this code inside the class, but here you have to use async and then call this particular thing. So the code and everything almost remains the same, the functioning also remains the same. The only difference is you have to use async whenever you are using that, and it's pretty simple to use. Okay, so we can do weather dot get weather. So whatever function is present there, so you can call that particular function. And then we have something called as dot then. So dot then is used to access a promise, and dot catch, which is used for displaying the errors. If there are any errors present in that, we use dot catch. If there aren't any errors, then we use dot then. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll display the value which is present here. So we have learned arrow function, so we can do it with arrow functions, or you can include function, then inside this you can write result, and then you can do something like this, and then console log result. So you can do something like this, and I think it will display, gives an indicate whether it, no, this one, no, whether, and for error also you can do the same error, and then console log error. This is how you do it with arrow function. This is without arrow function. Let me see the error also. If missing argument, I'm missing a bracket, I think. Let's check the line. Save it now. Now it should be create an object. It is not get with it. What I'll do is I'll just put on the document weather dot What's it should work like put this inside. Now it will work. So okay, is not okay. Now I think it will work. The function wasn't inside, that's why. Should be a scenario. Structure. Okay, sorry. I'll do test.ctm. Yeah, so see, that was a minor mistake. So if you don't add that basic things, might give an issue. So I missed dot this there in those two cases. That's why it was giving an error. So to put dot this everywhere. Okay, so if you're using constructor, it's always better to put dot this. You can't use normally city like this because under this keyword only this can be saved. These objects and variables are saved inside it. If you normally call them, it will not be able to access this because this is under a single block. Okay. And what is one of the variable which works under block code? Anyone? Block based keyword. Anyone who knows block? Which variable does works only in block? We have three types of variables, like three types of variables which we variable names we call it using var, let, cons. Which one is block oriented? Cons. Cons is also block oriented. That's correct. There's one more, which is specifically known different from the other one. Okay, that's let. Okay, so let, yeah, that's correct. Let is block oriented, and var is basically uh, you can use it look globally. Okay, so that's the advantage of both of them. So always do remember these kind of things. Don't forget them. Okay, any doubts? If you have, you can ask. Now, as we have got the values from JSON, what we can do is we can put these values inside the UI and we can add them. Okay, so the only part or only aspect that's left is to add these particular things inside the uh, code. Okay, So any doubts up till now, I have console log and I have used functions. So this inside this class I have a function, and inside this function you can call it using a class object, and using an object I have called it, and the other functions are pretty simple to use. Any doubts with this? Yep, it's one of the keywords that you can use is whenever you call an event listener, there are click, key up, key down, many keywords which we have studied. Like I know, I don't remember now. I've explained around 50 to 25 keywords which are present. So there's one more, DOM content loader. It's also one of the keywords that you can use. So as soon as uh, a website is shown up, it loads by default. Okay. Okay. Then we'll move on to the UI aspect of it. So what we can do is, as we are getting a response from this JSON, we can either call this response data dot something and we can access it. That's one of the shortest methods that you can do. But we have to get this UI collections, and we have to first get the particular value. So what we'll do is we'll get the values using document dot get element by ID, and we'll extract all the UL elements, LI elements, and then we'll using document or object model we can do various functions with it. So what are those values? We have temperature, then we have what else do we have? Humidity, no? We have description. So these are the three that we have to get basically. And what you can do is we can save this in another class so we can understand the concept of class better. Okay, so classes are much easier to use. Much, I think it's a little bit tough to understand the concept, but they are much useful in a scenario when you're doing object-oriented programming, or if you're studying for any of the competitive exams. Always follow these kind of things. So the advantage with this is you don't have to learn anything, you don't have to study, you don't have to remember any aspect. Okay, and don't have to go through any specific details. So object-oriented programming is really important. It will be used in most of the scenarios that we encounter. So that's why it's one of the important things that you will need. So we have three objects that we'll need. We'll require weather, response.weather. So let's test if response.weather is also working. So we'll do response.weather, response data.weather, and see if it returns the JSON for that particular object. If we do response.weather, it should only display the values which are present inside weather. So yes, we get description, ID, and clouds. Okay. So if we are getting the response, it's working in the right fashion. So what we have to do is we have to get response data, and inside that we have to find all the details which are present. Okay. So inside this class, we'll create a constructor, and for every object like this dot, what are those values which I have for temperature? This dot temperature, will get this be equal to all the three values which we have. Okay. For all of them we can do the same thing. This dot temperature, then this dot humidity. I'll add the humidity. And for the last one, so this is how you call them. And then Inside this class, we'll also create one more function similar to that async function, and we can name this, or we can do something called as paint. Okay, anyone who has heard about paint? What does paint keyword do? Anyone? Anyone who knows? Or you can Google and still find. If you guys can Google and tell me, I'll be happy, more than happy than that. If you guys can even answer what does it do? Paint keyword. Anyone? Try guys, no problem. You can guess what it should do. If you know by default, if you know on your own, then that's also good. You can search and let me know. Because you will remember that particular keyword. It's really important whenever you are studying JavaScript. Anyone? Okay. So paint is one of the keywords which we can use to print something to data. So by any function you call it, you can just create some random function named as paint. It was not present on Google, that's why I asked you this question. So paint is by created by me on my own. So whenever you create functions inside a class, you don't have to rename them as functions. You can just call it by any name. So this was one of the trick question that you can find anywhere. So you can make functions by any name. If it's an asynchronous function, just put async next to it. If it's a normal function, you don't have to put async. Okay. So you can create functions by name of like this and just use them normally as you want. Okay. So what we'll do is for every context, for every content that we have, we'll take that content and we'll modify the value for it. So this dot temperature dot text content. So text content, what does text content do, anyone? Yes, right. So it changes the context for that particular object. So whatever you use, you can change the content for that. Sorry, I have written this inside the value. You shouldn't do that. You should always call it like this dot. That's parenthesis. Inside parentheses, don't put up text, because what will happen is it's used for adding parameters there. So always don't add anything inside this context. Text content. Text content equal to backtick quotes, and inside this we can add we can write temperature is equals to, and similarly for others also I'll copy paste. Okay, humidity, and for last one, okay, and for this, what should be present inside this, anyone? I'll show you the response data JSON. How do we access that, anyone? How do we access description? First temperature, how do we access temperature, anyone? Anyone? Just try guys. We have console log, so don't worry. We can at the end we can check it what's present there. So don't worry. Just have to answer what should I write here after this so that I get temperature in response. Exact temperature value. You have the object present here. You can see the object. Anyone? It's present inside main. Then what should be the next thing? Yeah, yeah. Yes, right. Okay, so if you do main.temp, you can see what will be the output, and can, can do this. Yes, and you can see the temperature is loaded. Okay, so that's right. So to access that, what we have to do is we have to get the weather first. So what we'll do is we'll add a parameter named as weather inside this, and we'll access that particular variable, and that's the response that we get, response data. And same thing we have to do is we have to do main dot weather dot main dot temp to access temperature. For humidity now, anyone, weather dot, now you guys try what should be for humidity. Yeah, main dot humidity, that's right, main dot humidity. And last, weather main dot, it's, it should be, it should not be main, it should be weather dot. Okay, so any doubts with this? And to call this inside the console log, what you have to do is you have to just copy some simple steps and you will be able to do it. So it's pretty simple. You have to just call that particular function first, and after calling that particular thing, then you can access it. Okay, so you have to create similarly we have to create an object for that, and we'll call it new UI, and we'll be able to access the constructor. Now what we have to log is we have to take the result from here and we have to put it here inside paint. Okay, so to access that particular thing, you just use UI dot paint, and we'll be able to access that particular function, and here we'll give result. Okay, so I think we'll be able to display result. Okay, not property. Why is that so? This dot text. To display the data. I'll try this dot weather, but it should work without weather. Okay, let's see. Weather dot in dot temp. Let's just make it equal to temperature, description, and humidity. Temperature equal to y dot paint result. We can try console logging. Let's see what does it. Same error. Plus of equals to. I don't think so. Plus of equals to won't solve this because yeah, but that's text. No, text doesn't incur with anything. I'll change that to humidity. That won't affect anything. You just remove them also. It should display the values. That was just for UI purposes. Text content shows. Or we can do is inner HTML. Let's try inner HTML. Let us see if this works. Plus won't make any difference, I think. Yep. So same error. Cannot set property of inner HTML to null. Hmm. I'll check this and let you know. But this shouldn't be an issue. If you just do this also, it should work. Hmm. What I'll do is I'll copy, cut, paste this here. Should work. Change this to weather. I'll see the what was the error there. Let you guys know. Still same thing. Cannot set. Oh, sorry. Hmm. Should be constant. That's the issue. I did this here. I think this should solve it. Does it solve it? Remove. No. Okay, I'll do a quick fix as of now, but I'll see what was the error here. Should work with this. Instead of result, I'll do weather. Doing the same error. I don't know why. I'll check this and let you know in next class, I think. But console logging, this is working. So if you guys want to check if by console logging this is working, if I do this here dot text content equal to this, does it work? Uh, Still, hmm, I'll see this and let you in the next class because I can't find anything which is wrong with this. Any of you, no, text content plus C4 equals to doesn't work. I think I missed something, but I'm not able to find it. But mostly this should work. This code always works. Because if you do console log also, this is working there. If we console log result, it's working perfectly fine. Weather dot anything. If you do weather dot main dot description, it does work. It was undefined. Okay, so I think it's some problem with the API. That's why I wasn't able to do it. Weather dot weather dot main. If I do this, uh, some issue with this. Dot temp does work here. Should work in this condition. Type error. Oh, no idea why this error is showing up. I'll check in next class and let you know. Okay. Okay. Any doubts other than this? If you have, let me know. I don't know why, but this error is showing up. I'll check and let you know in the next class. Okay. For what is this keyword mainly used for? Which one? Which keyword? Main. Okay, main is the keyword for displaying this. No, I used weather is basically inside weather API. There's a main present here. Inside main we have temp. So to access that we have to do uh, weather.main.temp to access it. So that's why it's working with console log. I don't know why it's just showing an error with inner HTML. This shouldn't be possible also. I think they are, oh, that's why I named them as class. They should be ID. Oh, sorry for that. That's why it was giving an error. It wasn't showing anything. Hmm, sorry. I think now it will show, most probably. Yeah, sorry. Okay, and if you do that thing also, I think it should work now. uh, yes, yeah, this should work now. Yes, okay, so you can see it shows undefined for something, I don't know, for humidity, I think. So for humidity, document.get element by id. Is it present in main? Humidity present inside main. Yep, it's present inside main, it's present inside. Also, what is the second one? The second one is description. Second one is description. descrip. Yep, it's right. Weather dot description. Oh, that might create an ambiguity. That's why it's giving an error. I'll change the name to with. Okay, so what it understands, it has two variables with the same name. So I think that might be an issue. That's why it's giving an error. Then what's the issue? If I console log weather, what does it show? Console.log. Okay, cannot read humidity, undefined value. Undefined. If I give console.log dot weather, yes, it gives the output. So okay, I think it's an array. That's why it doesn't allow me to add to access that. I have to use 0.description. I think now I will be able to access it. Yeah. So because it's an array of zero values, so that's why it gives an error there. To make it zero, you will be able to see. Okay. So that was how you debug it. Console log always helps it. Okay, and do name your variables properly next time so you won't have this. Okay. Any doubts with this? I think now we are done with the session.